to a special edition of ChemVid, where we go over Google Spreadsheets. This is where you'll be able to create graphs for your lab reports, and it's much better and much more efficient than trying to do a chart online thing. Alright, so let's get started. Spreadsheets can actually be very helpful to you in multiple ways when you're doing calculations. It has a few things that you can do just off the bat to make your math easier. For instance, in a lab, let's say I took 10 data points for mass and volume. Normally, what you would have to do is you would have to go through each mass and each volume and divide them in order to get them to get the density. With Excel, you just push equals, you click on this the cell, push equals, click on the cell that you want. In this case, it's mass. Push divide, and then volume. So now my equation says take mass divided by volume. Hit enter, and it gives you the density. Then you can take this square right here and drag it all the way down, and it does all of your density calculations for you. So it saves quite a bit of time to use the equations in Excel. A few other things that you can do. There are certain codes that Excel has. One of them is the summation. So if I type in sum, capital sum, parentheses, and then I can highlight what I want to add together and close the parentheses, it'll add them together. I can hit equals average, and then I can click and drag what I want to average. Ta-da! Alright, so there are a few nice things that will help speed up your calculations if you need to. This especially is wonderful if you have a lot of data points, because you don't have to do all of your calculations by hand. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's go to graphing. The first thing what you do when graphing is you're going to have your x variable here and your y variable here. So you need to know what is your x-axis and your y-axis. Okay? And then you simply highlight the numbers, go to Insert, Chart, wait, and then you have your beautiful graph. Okay? Over here at Chart Type, there are many different types of charts. Okay, we have bar graphs, column graphs, pie graphs, all that kind of stuff. Bar graphs are for when you are comparing data, and scatter plots are used in order to see if there's a relationship between the dots. So I want to see if my density is really the slope of my line. So I'm going to push scatter plot right here, and it gives me these dots that are already on the graph. Then I can go over here to Customize, and I can type in the title, the chart title. Instead of doing mass and volume like it just automatically did, I'm going to put in density, because that's a little bit more specific. So density of, let's say these are gold samples. Okay, density of gold. Then I can click up here and I can edit my horizontal axis, and I can edit my vertical axis. Alright? Notice how I have units with my axis. That's very important. You always need to have units. Alright, the next thing you can do is click on Series, and you can scroll all the way down to Trend Line, and it's going to make a trend line for you, or a line of best fit, as you might call it. And this trend line is nice because it tells you what the density is. The slope is the density. So I want to know what the equation of that line is, so I know the density. I'm going to come over here to Label, and instead of none, I'm going to put Use Equation. And right here, it says that my density is 2.02. Okay, so this gives you y equals mx plus b format, and it lets you know what the density is. And then what you can do is you can see if your density on your graph matches the density on your numbers. So I'm going to take the average of all those points, and according to the average of my density, oh, I spelled density wrong. I'll fix that real quick. Okay, so according to my average, I have 1.98, but according to my line, my slope is 2.02. Fairly close, a little bit off. That's why we do graphs. That's why we like graphs. It gives us a better or a closer density to what our data actually says. Okay, so another thing we can do is we can actually graph two graphs or two plots on the same graph so that we can compare them, okay? So bar graphs are used when you want to compare one number to another number, but you can also plot two lines on one graph and it'll let you compare the relationship between them, okay? So I'm going to look at these. I just made up these numbers, and I am going to go into my graph. I'm going to edit it. And over here, under Setup, it says Series. I've already plotted B2 to B11. So that's this guy right here. All right, those are my first masses. But now I want to add a series, so I'm going to push Add Series. And then I click on this Select a Data Range, okay? And then I type in the new series. So in this case, it would be B19 to B23. So B19, colon, B23. And what that does is now it plots this one in a different color. So if you can see, as you can see, there's two different colors, and it's showing me where the differences are. Okay, so I'm going to go into Customize, and I'm going to add a trend line for my red one, the same way as I did before. Oops, not custom. There we go. And now I can compare. Maybe this was my first trial, these guys up here. And so my first trial said that the density of the gold was 2. But my second trial said that the density of my gold was 2.07. Having that, I can look at this graph and see that they are very similar, but there is a difference. And I can talk about why there's a difference or why there is error in them. Okay? It's also really nice because you can tell people in your conclusion or your discussion or whatnot that they can look at the graph to see something. So I can say, as you can see in the graph of density of gold, you can see that both trials gave densities relatively close to one another. But the red, or trial 2, represented by the red dots, has scatter points that are less linear than the blue ones, or trial 1. So it's a really good way to be able to compare. You can show them. Everybody likes visuals a lot better than they like words usually. And it's a wonderful way to show what you're doing. Okay, so that is the basics of Excel. But that's how you do a graph. And there's lots of other things you can do on Excel. If you want to learn about it, you can Google videos. You can do YouTube videos. There's tons of information out there. That's it for Google Spreadsheets. We will see you next time.